Want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. My name is Michael Evans, and you're listening to America's Voice Now. We want to be out here every single day, breaking the cycle of the ministry of propaganda and the nonsense and the lies that they feed you every single day. If you are not utilizing alternative media, either on the internet or a show like this, to capture and understand the true sources of news out there that the mainstream media is not showing you, you are missing out on the truth. You know, I posted an article up this morning on our Facebook page and on our website about how local officials are using stealth to put Agenda 21 and ICLEI, which is an acronym for the ICLEI, into every city, town, and county in America. And there's an example in there of a newly elected mayor in Knoxville who blatantly lies to the electorate in her community about Agenda 21 and its implementation, swearing she doesn't know anything about it, blah, 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 and then coming back out and saying that, well, there's proof that she did know exactly what it was, and there was a whole bunch of documentation supporting it. The problem is that she's a member of the Local Governments for Sustainability. And the ICLEI promotes the idea of cities, counties, townships, communities implementing Agenda 21 through a number of policies, not the least of which is zoning issues, sustainable development. Anytime you hear the word sustainable, know what that means. It's a euphemism for Agenda 21. And the problem with this is that we're seeing it leaking into every aspect of our lives. You know, this Agenda 21 has been rejected repeatedly as a treaty by the Senate. I believe 3 separate times. And yet, the International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives, that is what ICLEI stands for, and there was a forerunner to that. It was called the Urban CO2 Reduction Project. That's what they called it in the 90s. This is a group which works hand in hand with city agencies, city governments, communities, counties, to encourage them to pass Agenda 21 based initiatives and policies within your city, your town, your county. Now, you've all heard the phrase, politics begins at home. And it's important that you understand what's happening in your local community, not just on a statewide or a national level. Because the county that you live in, the city that you live in, by implementing Agenda 21, is doing the exact same thing that we fought against on the Blue Ways, but in a different format. You recognize that the assault comes to you from all sides. And where the frontal assault was a blue way, these cities and communities are implementing Agenda 21 by flanking you. They're coming around the side and attacking you from the side or behind. And that's why it's important that not only are you awake and aware about what's happening on a national level and what's happening on a statewide level, but that you must also be involved locally. It's an interesting article. I encourage you to read it because I think it will educate you and open your eyes to the treason right underneath your feet. Are they well-meaning? I don't know. Do they have evil intent? I don't know. Do they really think this works? I don't know. But I don't care. And you shouldn't either. Motivation is not an excuse to allow tyranny, regardless of what its cause. You know, there was a guy named H.L. Mencken who I'm kind of fond of. He was a bit of a cynic. I guess that's why I like him. And he used to have a kind of a phrase he'd throw out there every once in a while, and I'll paraphrase it because I don't have the exact quote right in front of me. But basically, it comes down like this: the urge to save humanity is almost always a cover for the desire to rule. And remember that, because anytime you hear someone coming out and dictating the rules to you that are going to save humanity, it always comes with them being in control and having the authority and the power, and you living within their dictated rule set. So the goal here should be that you are awake and aware and making sure that those who have the urge to save humanity are not misusing that authority or that power in a veiled or lightly veiled attempt to control and gain power. The urge to save humanity is almost always a cover for the urge to rule. Now, there's exceptions there. Mother Teresa is one that comes to mind. Gandhi is one that comes to mind. But you have to seek for examples where that's not the case. And that's why he says almost always. There are exceptions. There are true people who stand up and say, this is something that is worthwhile doing, and they don't really have some desire for power absorption. But you have to recognize that 99.999999999% of the time, it is. It is their desire to rule, and it's on a local level, from the dog catcher to the council on your city councils, to your mayors, to your local police, to your local county commissioners, to your state representatives, to your governors, to the vast miasma of Washington. All of these people think they know best. They know what's best for you. The simple truth is that that is anathema to the whole principle of free will and liberty. You cannot have liberty and freedom where someone is always dictating the rules of what you should and shouldn't do. The simple realities of life dictate this. Your happiness is rooted in you. Your success is rooted in you. Your behavior, which delivers either good or bad in your life, is rooted in you. It's not someone else's job to tell you how much water you should use. It's not someone else's job or right to tell you how you should act and how you should live and where you should do this and how you should do that, and to obtain permission to do everything from, running a small business to being able to make normal, functional decisions in your life. The problem is everybody wants to be a chief. Nobody just wants to be an Indian. And everybody's got this Hitlerian dialectic going on where they think they know so much better. Frankly, why don't you all just leave everybody else alone, mind your own business, focus on your own life, and stop trying to rule everyone else's? It's a flaw in humanity. That's why we'll never have world peace. My name is Michael Evans. We'll be back in just a moment.
Last time on the Dennis Miller Show.
I, honest to God, don't have an idea on now if the media knows that they're in the bag. They must, right? Or they're really looking at this presidency and thinking this is working. I'm fascinated by that, and I can't tell you how far I am from an answer because nobody over there is going to rat themselves. I almost wish that somebody would just come out, somebody I respected, and say, yeah, of course we're in the bag.
Weekdays from 9 till noon is the Dennis Miller Zone on the Ozarks' best news talk 107.1.
The Battery Station in West Plains is your headquarters for getting and being prepared. Natural disasters, civil unrest, personal and family protection, long-term sustenance, and most importantly, peace of mind. Berkey bottles and home-sized water purification systems, survival food, MREs, freeze-dried food, survival knives, lanterns, ammunition, military sleep system, and of course, batteries of all shapes and sizes. Take charge of your own survival and security. The Battery Station, 303 Washington and West Plains, 417-257-7799 or batterystation.com.
All right. We're back. So the question becomes, why is it someone always has to be minding your business? Truth of the matter is, this issue runs all the way from your local busybody all the way up to the NSA snooping around in your email and listening to your phone calls. No, not your metadata. Listening to your phone calls. It's absurd. Everybody always wants to mind somebody else's business. And we've become a nation of busybodies. From the county clerk all the way up to the President of the United States. In fact, the President came out and has made a declarative statement that federal employees should spy on each other, monitor their actions. Suddenly, Betty who makes 20 copies a day, is now making 50 copies a day, and she's furtively glancing behind her. We should report her. Everybody's a damn gossiper. And that stuff brings to mind the days of Stasi in East Germany. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mr. Evans. I was listening to what you were talking about ICLEI and, this government thing. And since I grew up in the Bible Belt, I remember this one place in the Bible that says that the people who want to rule over you say will be in your best interest. And I think the quote is, it is in your best interest that we should rule over you.
Wow.
It actually says it there, that this is what people will say. So,
based on whose opinion? And why is it that their opinion has more validity than yours?
Right. And I think what you're saying here is something I just drive this home, is that even here on a local level, we're not free to have the ability to seek our prosperity. When we start going back to the old words, about doing what we want to do in the best way without hurting anybody else. Somebody can't even sell their own property on their own property that they pay thousands of dollars of taxes on every year. That's not too much representation when we look at what's coming out of the high schools. But the whole thing about making it illegal, but not just illegal, a civil crime, but a criminal crime to sell something without permission from them and paying them.
Well, have you ever noticed how everything now suddenly carries jail time?
Yeah.
There's a story this morning.
Big industry.
There's a story this morning about a girl right here in Sugar Creek, Missouri. And she takes old tires and repaints them and turns them into flower planters. Now, she says she's really interested in recycling, and she's big on self-sufficiency.
There we go. Reusing.
So, the authorities in Sugar Creek disagree. They've issued her a citation, and she's refused to pay the fine. And she says she's prepared to go to jail if necessary after she was threatened by authorities who said, you're going to pay up or you're going to prison.
Wow.
Here's what their issue is. Apparently, she's got these tires on her property, and they say the tires can attract mosquitoes because they can capture water and lower property values. Here's the real deal. They don't really care a hoot about mosquitoes, but lower property values. So basically what's happened is one or two of her neighbors have complained. So anyway.
Tax revenue.
The issue, right. So basically, they say, and this is their comment, we've asked her to put them somewhere else because there's quite a number of them. We try to keep people from accumulating tires because they retain water and attract mosquitoes. They detract from property values in the neighborhood, too. I'm sorry, it should be the other way around. They detract from values in the property value in the neighborhood, and they might attract or capture water, retain water, and attract mosquitoes. So she's now storing most of them inside of an old truck. So there couldn't really have been that many. Right? I mean, if she's storing them inside of an old truck,
laughable.
I mean, unless she's got, a tractor trailer on her property. Right?
40-footer right there, yeah.
Here's the problem. Who is the city or the town to come in and say she can't do something that, for all intents and purposes, ICLEI and Agenda 21 people would be approving of?
Right.
Here you are taking a resource that's going to lay around until it finds its way into a landfill and then probably by some malicious kid be lit on fire where it'll burn for the next decade. Or you can turn them into flower pots.
Right.
I mean, the whole concept of someone, who is being abused in this fashion, and to put somebody in jail for refusing to pay a fine on a summons is we've turned into this concept of debtor's prison.
Right, and that's one of the things that we were fighting against as from the Mayflower all the way down.
Absolutely.
To the very beginning.
The whole idea of debtor's prison is anathema to liberty and freedom and independence as a nation and as a people. And, it's just one more example of the types of abuse that, and honestly, I mean, who are these cities? When we were fighting the Blue Ways, I was up there in Oregon County one afternoon, and there was a fellow there who I went in to go get a cup of coffee in a place, and a fellow was walking out, and I had a flyer in my hand, and I said to him, "Have you heard about the Blue Ways?" And I just approached him purely as a complete stranger, and they were clearly not from the area. He was too well dressed. They were, So anyway, turns out they were spending some time canoeing down the river. So he asked me, "No, what is the Blue Ways?" So I explained it to him in brief. And you know what he did? He turned around and he said to me, "Well, the real problem here is I've seen some of these places when I've gone down the river, and these people don't take very good care of their land."
Oh, wow.
And I looked at him and I said, "Well, who are you to determine how and under what circumstances they should take care of their land?"
Exactly.
I mean, it's not your land. You may want to be on a river on their land, but if you don't like the way that they maintain their land that you are passing through, that's your problem. Go find a different river.
Mind your own business. That's what the first coin said. Mind your business.
We live in a nation of gossip mongers and people who, rather than take a look in the mirror and identify their own problems, would much rather focus on the problems everyone else may have based on their subjective opinion.
Exactly correct.
And that is shameful.
Can I get back to that thing about infiltration, about the ICLEI and all the rest of these things are undermining, from the county sheriff office, everything down. But there was something interesting, another laughable moment, if you will. A gentleman and his wife had some ducks as pets. I think there was in Michigan or Pennsylvania. And they decided that they should be fined $500 a day per duck for having it because they had a poultry business.
Mm-hmm.
It was a poultry business. Well, these are their pets. They're going to eat them.
Right.
And here they have 4 ducks or 5 ducks, and they're refusing to pay. But their judge is now saying $500 a day, and if not, we'll put you in jail.
Well, and I'm reminded of the Dollar Heights scenario with raising the rabbits. They started raising rabbits. If you've ever read Dollar Heights' book,
right?
And I have a copy of it. You want to talk about abuse of power and abuse of authority. This is so far out. And here's the problem. When these inspectors come in, I saw this myself with the Morningland Dairy folks.
Yeah.
The minute you challenge them or don't completely acquiesce, hit your knees and do the "we're not worthy" bow, boy, they get pissed.
You got to kiss the ring.
And the minute and they take that little mustard seed of authority they have, irrespective of whether they're the dog catcher or the milk board guy or the zoning officer or whatever, and they make it personal because now they don't like you. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're doing right, wrong, or indifferent by way of the environment, zoning law, or anything else. The minute you challenge their authority, they don't like you personally. And now they are they're abusing their power in a vendetta. And I've seen it in officials of many stripes, many sizes, many shapes, cops to a zoning officer who doesn't like a specific builder, and he goes out there and he makes that guy jump through fiery hoops every time he goes out and checks the plumbing, or the wiring or whatever the case. I mean, this happens over and over and over again.
In the meantime, other people, his friends, get to pass.
Well, that's why Jefferson said, let's put aside this idea of good men and bind men down with the chains of the Constitution, because we can't be trusted. People are fallible, and they are by natural progression of humanity, likely to misuse and abuse the authority they have. And that is another reason why you must keep a constant eye on your county commissioners, your city or boards, your mayor, your city councils, your county commissioners.
What's the best way we can do that, Michael?
Well,
how can we do that?
The first thing you can do is you can run for office yourself.
Oh, boy.
The first thing you can do is take a seat at the table so that you are privy to what's going on in the school board meeting. I've gone to school board meetings. They have a 1.5-hour closed session meeting to discuss proprietary information. Then they come out and they have a half-hour public meeting. Then they go back into closed session again for another hour and a half. Now, I got to ask you, what is so secretive about our school system that you can't have it in front of the public whose children you're supposed to be representing?
Oh, I don't know.
You see, the issue here, and the city councils do it, these departments that meet, and there's a million departments in every county or city or town or community across the country. People should be running for local seats. And the goal is you get in there, you do your job for a couple of short, maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then you get out. Because if you don't, you will find yourself corrupted and compromised just like the person you're replacing. Today's freedom fighter becomes tomorrow's tyrant. And that's not national. That's as small as the dog catcher role.
It's historical.
Well, it's microcosmic. It happens not just in large places like, national governments. It happens in little things. The guy who goes to sit on the city council board because he says, I don't like the way that these people are running the city council, suddenly, after 4 or 5 years, becomes the same tyrant they were, who he hated.
Right. Right.
Look at all you got to do is look at today's leadership in politics. These are the same people in college back in the 70s that were walking around in tie-dye shirts with a joint hanging out of their mouth saying, "Screw the man."
And now they've become career politicians.
Now they've become the man.
Yeah, they're career politicians now.
And you know what's even worse? They've become the man who thinks it's okay for them to snoop into your email and listen to your telephone calls. When they were upset about a search on the street when you were walking around with a joint in your mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
you see, the hypocrisy of it is just completely astounding.
Sold out.
It's the nature of where we are, and it's the nature of human nature. That's why our founders said to us, eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. You don't have an opportunity to sit back and on your laurels and be lazy about it. We must constantly be on watch to oversee those who claim to be an authority over us.
Reminds me of that security thing. If you're people who are willing to give up the security or give up their freedom for security don't deserve the freedom in the first place.
Or the security.
Right.
Hey, thanks for the call.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Hey, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about a couple of other issues here. There's 2 or 3 different issues. One, there's a new bill out there in the House that's going to be voted on prohibiting IRS enforcement of Obamacare. It's an action item. We've got to jump all over this. And then I want to talk about this Obama plan to predict future leakers and how they're making this like a Stasi nation.
Fox News Radio. I'm Chris Foster. The surviving Boston Marathon bombing suspects in court this afternoon.
The Justice Department has not decided whether or not they'll seek the death penalty for Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, who will be arraigned today in federal court in South Boston on 30 counts, including using weapons of mass destruction, murdering 4, and injuring hundreds in April.
Fox News Radio's Jeff Manasso. Some of those victims and their families will be there at the court, too. There's an arrest order for the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, 9 others as well, for inciting violence since Mohamed Morsi was removed as president.
Egypt's interim government is trying to move forward with a transitional plan, issuing a decree calling for new elections and amendments to the constitution. But that decree was met with concern by several of the groups that helped oust Morsi, and the Muslim Brotherhood is refusing to participate in the process.
Fox News Radio's Kimberly Adams in Cairo. Fox News, we report, you decide.
I'd like to thank our sponsor, Wits End Classic Barbershop, who is the sponsor of our telephone lines this morning. They're located on the square in West Plains. It's Wits End Classic Barbershop. Thanks to our friends over at West Plains Pawn and Gun. You can find them on the web at westplainspawn.com. They can be reached at 417-256-3000, and they're located on Route 160, about a mile past Walmart on the right-hand side. 400 guns undercover. Pizza Hut, our friends down there on Porter Wagoner Boulevard. They have an outstanding lunch menu with salad, pizza, and pasta. Excellent opportunity for you to have a great lunch and eat well and something tasty. Our friends over at the Battery Station at 303 Washington Avenue. You can find them on the web at batterystation.com. Telephone 417-257-7799. Our friends over at Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance can be found on the web at ozarkmtnselfreliance.com. My friend Brian there can be reached at 870-492-4030. They're located a half-mile east of Walmart at 3225 Route 62, Mountain Home. My friend Mary over at Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, the best damn bakery in 100 miles. She's right off the square in West Plains at 2 Evans Arcade, and you can reach her at 255-2253. And my friend Bill Stone over at Stone Construction. If you're considering doing remodeling, custom or new construction, or anything like commercial, give Bill a call and have him bid on your project at 293-0116.
Hi, I'm Scott Corman, President of Community First. We want to be your bank. We believe in the strength of our communities, businesses, families, and future. We're not just locally owned, but community owned. And we operate today just as we started, by living up to our name, putting you and our communities first.
Living up to our name, community first, banking company.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Weather sponsorships are now available on News Talk 107.1 The Point. Get more information, email info